So to start off things today with the circulatory system, we're going to be looking at something called the lymphatic system. Well, lymphatic system, sorry. Now, just to make it clear, well, most people don't know about this thing called the lymphatic system. And it's very, very important to note that the lymphatic system is not the same as the circulatory system. So it brings about the question, if today's topic is the circulatory system, and I now said that the lymphatic system is not the same as the circulatory system, then why am I teaching this under the circulatory system? Well, the lymphatic system helps the circulatory system. So in other words, the lymphatic system and the circulatory system are friends. They help out one another. Now, while they help out one another, they are not the same. So today I'm going to point out, obviously, the differences between this thing called the lymphatic system, the circulatory system, and then we're going to investigate the lymphatic system in total detail. So let's start off with a brief review of the circulatory system. All right, so the circulatory system, quickly on the chat and try to get involved as much as possible as sending answers on the chat, right? So you type up your answers and responses and send it on the chat. The circulatory system, we all know it contains blood, and blood is made up of a lot of things. Tell me, what is responsible for pushing the blood around in the circulatory system? Because we know that the blood cannot really move on its own. So what is responsible for pushing the blood around the system? Right now, a lot of answers are coming up. This is one of the easy questions today. So take advantage of it and, answer it, right? To build your confidence a little bit. And the answer to that is going to be your heart. Easy questions. That is going to draw my representation of the heart here. So the heart, as you all remember, comes like the pump. It pushes the blood. All right, easy stuff. So it will push the blood out of the heart, right? This red line that I just drew, this vessel that I'm going to put the little arrows here. When blood leaves the heart, what is this vessel called? Remember, there are three major types of vessels. One starting with A, one starting with C, and one starting with V. So when blood leaves the heart at a very high pressure, it's called an artery. Yes, you all remember. So blood leaves the heart by the artery. And remember, the heart is pushing. It's a muscle. The heart itself is a very strong muscle that pushes blood out of it. And then, as you all remember, numbers color-coded, the arteries would eventually break away or break out and form smaller what? Particles. And as you all remember, these smaller passageways or these smaller vessels are called capillaries. And then the capillaries will supply what? Why do the arteries become smaller and become capillaries? What do the capillaries communicate with or interact with? Let's phrase that as an official question in the exam. The capillaries, as we all know, are very, 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 very small. Who do the capillaries interact with? Right, seeing some answers coming up. Send your answers, guys. Don't be shy. Only I can see your answers. Right. Remember, your capillaries, and I'm not drawing it to scale here, obviously, will interact with your cells. That's the nucleus of the cell here, drawing some mitochondria in it, some vacuoles in it and whatnot, right? So the capillaries, right, interact with your cells. Now, like I said, the cells are super, 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 super small, but I'm just drawing it large. And then the capillaries will do what? Recombine, right? And of course, this is still capillaries here. And then the blue capillaries will recombine to give you what? A vein. And the vein goes back to the heart. And well, the whole process restarts itself or repeats itself over and over and over. So today, we're going to start off the lymphatic system, and we're going to be investigating this area here, where the capillaries make contact with the cells. Because, let me draw another diagram here. Let me just show you what's going on in this area a little bit more. Oops, we got a different color. Let's say this line here is a capillary. So we went underneath a microscope and we zoom into a capillary. So just in case somebody joins class late, let's label it. So know what we're talking about. So that's a very, very, very fine, thin capillary. And like we said, the capillary will make contact with the cells. So this here is a cell. That's my little nucleus there. Right. Now, the thing around the cell is the cell membrane, right? So let's put a little cell membrane. Does the cell membrane have small holes in it? Yes or no? Do the cell membranes have holes in them? That's the wall around the cell that kind of like keeps everything trapped inside the cell. Well, what do you all think? All right, reading the answers and. The answer to that question is yes. You want to know why you should know the answer to that question? Because they always say the cell membrane, I'm sure when you read through your notes, you're going to see this term, is semi-permeable. Semi-permeable is a very fancy term for there are small holes in it. And there are very good reasons. So let me draw this back in a more realistic manner. The wall around the cell, you see how I'm dashing it now? This indicates that the wall has small holes in it. Why do they have small holes in it? Because remember, the capillaries, which contain the blood, have plenty nutrients in it. There's a call a few. I don't want to call all. It have things like glucose in it, oxygen in it, vitamins, minerals. So what's going to happen? Don't these vitamins and minerals and glucose have to seep out of the capillary and enter into the cells? Because it's the cells who really needs all of these things. How would it reach into the cells if there were no holes in the cell membrane? They're very, very small holes and they're really difficult to see. But when you put them underneath a microscope, I guarantee you, you will see small openings or holes in the walls of a cell. Now, here's what. The nutrients have to flow out of the capillaries into the cells. Now, use your imaginations here, right? Let me get a different color here. The capillaries sometimes make direct contact with the cells, but there will always be small spaces, like really, really, really small spaces in between the capillary and the cell. What do you think it has in between the capillary and the cell? It must have something. It can't be nothing. It can't be air. I guarantee it's not air. What do you all think fills the little spaces in between the capillaries and the cells? Take a best guess. One person said oxygen. That's not the correct answer, but still take a try. It doesn't matter if you don't know. What do you think fills the spaces in between the capillaries and the cells? I'll give you a hint. The nutrients need to flow from the capillary into the cell. It's not blood in between there. It's not blood. I'll give you a hint. It starts, well, Sonia, correct. It starts with the letter W. And it's very abundant on Earth. You can see it almost anywhere. That should give it away. It starts with the letter, right? It's obviously going to be water, right? So here's what. Well, that is going to call it liquid, right? That is going to call it liquid. I'll call it water, right? I guess more people are accustomed with that. So in between, oops, that's too thick, that's too thick. Give me a second here. So in between here, it have what? Water or moisture, right? I'm gonna draw it. You're gonna get a real nice diagram of this after. I actually have a nice diagram. This is my crappy drawing here, right? So you have some water there. We'll label it now so we all know what it is. Right, and this makes sense because now the nutrients can do what? Flow out of the capillaries, and a lot of people don't know this, but the capillaries too have permeable what? Semi-permeable membranes. A lot of people don't know that, right? Just like how the cells, the walls have what? Small holes in them. The same thing for the capillaries. So now what? All the nutrients from the capillary could flow out into the water. So the water comes like a passageway and it could what? Flow into what? The cells now. You see how useful that water is? Without that water in between the capillary and the cell, the nutrients would not be able to flow out. It comes like they swim across, and they will swim across and go into the cells. Who can tell me where this water comes from? And this is going to be real important. Where does that water come from? It couldn't just magically appear in your body, right? Where does the water come from? One person said the skin. Just take tries. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're wrong, right? Just try. One person said the lungs. And the answer is way simpler, like one of the simplest answers. The answer actually in front of you on the screen. Right? Right, Sarah, correct. All right. So look how, right, Scott, correct. Right. So like I said, the answer is in front of you. Tell me something. Blood. Remember, there must be blood in the capillaries. Does blood contain water? Do you think? I mean, blood has many things in it, right? But does blood contain water? And the answer is yes. This water comes from the blood. The blood already has water in it. So some of the water mixed up in the blood will flow in between, okay? And of course, knowing that now, the nutrients can flow across. So the blood brings the water. Now, your body is very sensitive. You cannot have too much water inside. You see where the water is, where the barrier is? It's good to have some water here, but it cannot have too much water. I don't know if you all have ever seen this in real life, right? Sometimes there's a sick person, and let's just say they sit down for too long. They don't have to be sitting down for too long. They could have a certain condition, and then their limbs begin to swell. Like the foot just becomes large, or their hands begin to swell up. I don't know if you all have any relatives, or usually it happens in people who are putting on some age and they can't move around too much. So like their legs and ankles and hands begin to swell, right? It's because too much water begins to build up between the capillaries and the cells. It means that the blood is bringing too much water. Now, what normally happens in a healthy person? When the blood brings the water, a different color here. When the blood brings the water, it's supposed to take back some of the water. So it will bring water and take back some. So that way, not too much water builds up over here, because when it starts to build up, that water starts to build up, your hands and limbs will begin to swell. And obviously that is going to be a medical condition, right? You can get really, really sick from that. But your body, well, this part of your body is not perfect, meaning that while the capillaries bring the water and supposed to take back a certain amount, they usually don't. So that means some excess water will build up here. Guess which part of your body will take the excess water that the capillaries were not able to take back? It's the lymphatic system. So the lymphatic system is like a backup plan for the blood vessels. Whatever extra water the blood vessels could not take back, the lymphatic system says, hey, buddy, don't worry. I have your back. I will take up the excess water for you and get rid of it. But that's not the only thing the lymphatic system does. It does some other stuff as well, but that's one of the main things it does. Is everybody okay so far? You don't need to take down anything. This here is your lymphatic system, right? Obviously, I don't expect you to draw this. Don't worry, the examiner is not going to ask you to draw the lymphatic system or label it. It's not going to happen. However, I just want you to know how it looks. Just like the circulatory system, it's made up of vessels. You see all of these green things here? These are not blood vessels. These are separate vessels in your body, right? And the thing about it, you will see little circles. You're seeing these little circles here in the lymphatic system are circling. It have these little areas that look swollen. It looks like this. You see a vessel, and then it have this swollen part in it. Those are called your lymph nodes, right? Lymph nodes. And I'm going to explain what all of those things are in a little while. So let's get with the official, my official notes on the lymphatic systems. Here's the thing though. When you compare it to capillaries, right? I'm going to draw a capillary here on the screen here. This here are capillaries, right? Which ones you think are thicker generally? Just like how, I should have mentioned this before. Just like how when you have arteries are very, very, very thick. And then the arteries will split up into thin capillaries. The lymphatic system is very, very similar. The lymphatic system, let me draw it here, has thick parts, just like arteries. And then, just like arteries, the lymphatic system will split up into smaller pieces. So I guess the lymphatic system has its own version of capillaries. Here's my question. Which one is thicker? Lymphatic capillaries or blood capillaries? Which one do you think is thicker? And this is going to be very important. Which one, I'm going to repeat the question while people send their answers. Which one is thicker? Lymphatic capillaries or blood capillaries? And the answer is going to be right. Lymphatic capillaries are thicker, which means since the lymphatic capillaries are thicker, they can actually hold or transport bigger stuff. Capillaries being very, very thin, while blood capillaries can transport many useful things like minerals and glucose and oxygen, they cannot transport big molecules like fat and glycerol. We're going to get to that in a little while. I'll give you a little review on that. All right, so let's keep that in the back of your head. So let's go through the uses of the lymphatic system. First part of the note, I mentioned this already. The lymphatic system, this is separate from the circulatory system. He's just a friend to the circulatory system, right? Remember, the circulatory system has the heart, the veins, the arteries, and the capillaries. The lymphatic system helps to transport certain things. We mentioned this. Excess tissue fluids. What are the excess tissue fluids? That's the fluids or the water in between the capillaries and the cells. I drew that diagram a little while ago. This thing here, the lymphatic system helps to transport fatty acids and glycerol from the small intestines. I want to spend some time talking about number 2. This is going to go back to the digestive system. And I'm sure some of you all won't mind a little revision from the from the digestive system. So just give me some room over here. Right. Which part of your body in the digestive system does the most digestion? Is it your mouth? Is it your stomach? Or is it your small intestines? What do you all remember from last term? Which part of your body does the most digestion? It's the small intestines, right? So the small intestines does the most digestion. Great. You all remember that. All right. Whenever you eat proteins, what does your digestive system break down the proteins into? Remember, the whole point of your digestive system is to take big nutrients and break them down into smaller particles so it can be absorbed into your bloodstream, which will be eventually transported to your cells. No, try it back, Zariah. When you eat, okay, I think some of you are misinterpreting the question. When you eat proteins, let's say you eat a piece of chicken. Chicken is really high in protein. When you swallow that chicken or whatnot, right? Your body is going to break down the protein in the chicken meat into smaller particles. What are these smaller particles called? It's 2 words. Both of them start with A. It's something acids. Now, guys, rack your brain from last term. Amino acids. All right. Now, amino acids are pretty small. So amino acids can fit inside of blood capillaries. So blood capillaries can absorb the amino acids from your intestines and transport it to all your cells. So he's not a problem. He's small enough to fit inside blood capillaries. All right. What about carbohydrates? Carbohydrates. Let's say you eat something high in carbohydrates. Let's say you eat some potatoes or bread or cassava, which is full of carbohydrates. When you swallow that and it goes inside the intestines and your digestive system breaks it down, what will it break down the carbohydrates into? It starts with the letter G. All right, you all are getting it correct. Carbohydrates are broken down into glucose. And glucose is very small. It can fit into your blood capillaries, no problem. However, when you eat fats, anything that's fatty, like butter or cheese, that's all I can think about right now. What does your body break down fats into? Well, what is fat made up of? What are the smaller particles that you put together to make fat? Come, guys. No, guys, lot of wrong answers here. It's 2 things. Fats are broken down into something called fatty acids. Now, fatty acids is different from fats. Fatty acids are smaller than fats. They make up fats. And glycerol. Does that ring some bells from last term? Fats are made up of fatty acids and glycerol, sorry. Unfortunately, fatty acids and glycerol are too big to fit inside of blood capillaries. So instead of the fatty acids, you see, when your stomach, not your stomach, your small intestines finally break down the fats into fatty acids and glycerol, it cannot be put into the blood capillaries. Instead, it has to go into the lymphatic system. Remember, I explained a few minutes ago that the lymphatic system, the capillaries of the lymphatic system are larger than the capillaries of the blood system. So this stuff here can actually fit into the lymphatic system. And that is where your fats go. Eh? Your fats go into your lymphatic system at first. And then the lymphatic system, it will do a few things to it, and then it will release it into the blood. But it cannot release it into the blood directly. Right? So that is what number 2 is about, right? The fatty acids need to go inside the lymphatic system, not the blood system. Also, some hormones. Now, hormones are special chemicals in your body that make your body do something. For example, there are certain hormones, chemicals produced in your body that can give you extra energy, like adrenaline, whenever you're in danger. Adrenaline is a hormone that can make you more alert. Your body is full of hormones that make you grow a certain way. Or in some cases, certain hormones can tell you whether to go to the washroom to number 1 more often or not. Like on a cold day, if the place is very, very cold, won't you use the washroom more? Because the fluids go through your body what? Faster? Well, there are hormones in your body that tell you whether to go to the washroom now or not. Okay? So lymphatic system transports some hormones, not all the hormones in the body, just the large ones that are too small to fit in your capillaries. Number 4, here's what a lot of people don't know about the lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system, right, can transport pathogens. Now, in case you didn't know, pathogens are bacteria that try to invade your body. So if a certain bacteria is trying to make you sick, the lymphatic system will transport these pathogens or dangerous bacteria to this area of your lymphatic system. It will take them inside the nodes where they will get destroyed by white blood cells. So there are certain areas in your lymphatic system called your lymph nodes. They are like holding areas. It's like a security room. So your body says, hey, there's a dangerous pathogen. Great. The lymphatic system takes that dangerous bacteria and it carries it into this room called the lymph nodes. And that is where the white blood cells, as you all know, who specialize in destroying pathogens, will come into that room and destroy the pathogen. Now, don't get me wrong. Your lymphatic system is not the only system in your body that destroys pathogens. It's just one of the systems out there. Because normal blood, normal blood also has white blood cells in it. So your normal blood can also destroy pathogens, right? But how the lymphatic system is the friend of the circulatory system, he doesn't mind helping out sometimes. I need for you all to take down this topic and everything within the rectangle. You don't need to draw the diagram, right? Like I said, they're not going to ask you to draw the diagram or even label the diagram. The most they might ask you to do is label the lymph node, and that's very easy to identify. That's the part of the system that has the little bubble in it. You can't miss that. Let me know when you guys are finished. All right. So let's see what this slide is about. So Why are number 2 and 3 not transported by the normal circulatory system, right? So this is a pretty common question in the exam, so I just decided to give you all the answer one time, straight out of the past papers, right? So as I mentioned, right, the lymphatic system is like a professional at transporting larger molecules. So things that the circulatory system cannot handle, well, the lymphatic system will jump in to assist. So let me just read back the note here in the purple. Fatty acids and some hormones are too large to fit into capillaries. Now, when I say capillaries here, I mean blood capillaries, right? This is blood capillaries. In this case, the lymphatic system will absorb these items and transport them to the veins. Now, let me explain what this means. The lymphatic system, while it is separate to the blood system, it's connected at a certain point. So the lymphatic system will take all the large molecules directly into the lymphatic system, and then later on, after it does a few things to the larger molecules, it will then later on dump it into the veins of the circulatory system. But it's very important to note the large molecules do not go directly into the veins. It has to go through the lymphatic system first, and then slowly and gradually introduced back into the veins of the circulatory system, right? So could you all add in this note here? You don't have to take back down the table, right? You just have to add in that particular note and the little heading here, right? Let me know when you guys are finished. All right, let's move on. All right, so this here is a very detailed diagram of how the system looks. Now, it looks complicated, right? But let me explain it first. And, right, everything that I already explained is in these notes here, right? Everything. But I want to explain the diagram. So, like I said, it's kind of hard to see, but if you look at it properly, you will see the arteries. Look at it there. This here is the arteries. The red one is the artery. And then the arteries are going to split up into what? Thinner pieces. You all see the thinner pieces here. These are like the capillaries, right? And that's highlighting it for you. So I'll erase it just now. So these here are the capillaries. And then the capillaries, well, they merge back. Give me a little time here to do this. They will merge back and form what? The veins, right? Right, so that me highlighting it there should make it work a little bit easier. So everything red is connected to the arteries, right? And everything blue is connected to the veins. Now, if you will notice, in between, right, these little things with the little dots are the cells, right? So you will see that in between the cells and the capillaries, it have what? Little liquids filling up in between, because I mentioned that already, right? In between, there must be some liquid, well, water in between the cells and the capillaries. The water is brought by the capillaries, and the capillaries are supposed to take up some of the water. But like I said, the process is not perfect. And the excess water that remains, guess who takes it? Who takes up the excess? The lymphatic system. So let me get a different color here. Let's see. I get a kind of orange so you can see better. If you will notice, in between the cells too, it have what lurking in between there? The lymphatic capillaries. And what are they doing? They are looking for any excess water, or they are looking for any large molecules like hormones and fatty acids. So when excess water or fatty acids or hormones end up in between here, the lymphatic system will drain it away. It will absorb it and drain it away because the normal blood capillaries cannot absorb it or take care of it. All right. So I need for you this one here. I think you all need to draw. I don't think I could because they could in the exam I have seen them bring a diagram very similar to this, and they ask you just to label pieces of it, and then they ask you to describe what is going on in this diagram. Right? I know it's a bit complex to draw, okay? But I need for you all to make an attempt. So how much time do you think it's fair enough to draw this and take down the notes? 10 minutes? 10 minutes should be? All right. But this is a very important diagram, and I don't want to take the chance and ask you all to do it for homework, because I know some of you all might not. All right. So good luck, and, keep me in the loop of when you are finished. All right, so the next thing, remember at the beginning of class, I think the first question I had asked, what pushes the blood through the normal circulatory system? And the answer to that question was the heart. So the circulatory system has a heart that acts as a pump to push the blood. The lymphatic system is not so lucky, right? The lymphatic system is not connected to our heart. So there's no pump to push whatever the lymphatic system absorbs. There's no heart to push it around. So how do things move around the lymphatic system? How do the liquids flow in the lymphatic system if there's no heart? It has to rely on our muscles. So every time like you breathe in and out, remember to breathe in and out, your muscles have to do what? Contract and relax, contract and relax. Whenever you're walking about, the muscles in your feet or the muscles in your hand, but while you move your hands, right, will what? Contract and relax. So that contraction and relaxing would actually squeeze on the lymphatic system. And here it has a very, very nice diagram. So these here are the lymphatic vessels. So it needs to do what? So not needs to, the muscles will squeeze on the lymphatic system and push the fluid through. Which brings us to something. If a person is bedridden, right? Let's say the person got in a serious car accident and they're just lying on the bed, or a person, you know what a couch potato is? A couch potato is somebody who's very lazy, will go home, sit down in one position on the couch and just watch TV for the whole day. Do you think a person like that will have a healthy lymphatic system? Do you think the lymphatic fluid inside of the lymphatic system is going to flow properly? No, right? It's not going to flow. And you're going to realize in a lot of the scenarios that I just discussed, if a person is like extremely lazy or is in a very bad situation where he cannot move, what do you think is going to happen by their cells? The fluids are going to build up because the lymphatic system is unable to flow and move the fluid out of the area. So the water will build up, the excess water, and you will see like their limbs begin to swell, right? And of course, when the limbs begin to swell with all of that water that cannot be removed by the lymphatic system, it can cause your limbs to go numb. Obviously, you're going to start feeling very, very unpleasant. It's going to be a very unpleasant feeling. So this is what the note here is about. Also, you will notice that there's a huge similarity between veins, not arteries, veins and the lymphatic system. You all remember this from when we started the circulatory system, that the veins have these valves to prevent the liquid from going backwards. Veins also have valves that prevent the blood from flowing backwards. So that's a similarity between veins and the lymphatic vessels. Both of them have valves to prevent backflow. Right, so this is what this note is about. Do me a favor, no? I needed to draw this diagram as well as take down the notes. Right. Right, so it's always a good idea not to remain in one position too long. It's always good to be active, like move around, get your lymphatic system fluid, right? All right. So what can the buildup of the tissue fluid cause, right? What can cause it, sorry, the buildup? Well, the buildup of the tissue fluid, well, in case you don't remember, the tissue fluid is the liquid water that we've been talking about in between the cells and the capillaries. So there's one condition called lymphatic obstruction. So one way, this is a condition, obviously. So it's a blockage or damage of the lymphatic vessels. So some people are not so fortunate to have a good lymphatic system. The vessels are damaged, right? Maybe it's genetic. Maybe they got into some sort of accident or some sort of bacteria damaged it or something like that, right? So the blockage or damage of the lymphatic system can impede the normal drainage of the lymphatic fluid. And of course, if the lymphatic system, the vessels are damaged, well, the water is going to build up because it's unable to remove the water. So you're going to get a lot of swelling in certain areas of your body. And we mentioned this one already. Lack of movement and weak muscles. So some people might not be very mobile. Like I said, it could be couch potatoes, or you might have a very old person who is just naturally weak, or they got in some sort of accident and they're just not able to move around. So the muscles are too weak to push on the lymphatic vessels. Like the muscles literally that weak that they can't squeeze the vessels. And of course, this can contribute to tissue fluid buildup known as edema, right? This is actually, I saw this coming up past paper, right? This is the actual answer to a past paper question. And of course, we'll be doing that later on, not today, probably in a couple months. Right, so take down this here, and you should need more than a minute to take this down, and we will move on. All right, so now it's test time on the circulatory system. Some of these are official past paper questions, and some of these are just some questions that are found on the net and whatnot, and I put them together. And of course, even though some of them might not be official past paper questions, the theory in it is it's close enough for very good practice. All right, so let's get going on this. All right, so begin to try the questions. I don't expect you to write down these questions, but at least send your answers across. Now, read it and send your answers across and ready test yourself. So if you send any answers, like if it's A part 1, make sure and write A part 1 and send the answer. If it's A part 2, be real specific and clear on which answers you are sending. Good luck. Feel free to go back in your notes how much. It's not an official test. This is just an excuse for me to make you revise your work. So good luck, and I'll wait the answers. Which one destroys bacteria? Now, the obvious answer to that is what? White blood cells. White blood cells are responsible for destroying bacteria. Which one is more likely to carry carbon dioxide? Is it the artery or is it the vein? The answer for that one would be the vein. The vein, well, so it's two answers. The carbon dioxide could be carried in the veins, but remember the veins contain blood, and inside the blood it have plasma. So the more complete story is this, right? I don't know which one they wanted here because both of these answers are correct. The plasma is the liquid part of the blood, and the carbon dioxide is usually dissolved inside of the plasma. But what carries the plasma? That is carrying the carbon dioxide. It's the vein, right? So either one of those answers would be correct. I just put both. Number 3 is probably the easiest. We all know the heart is the pump. Which one of these carries blood to the organs, right? Now, there might be 2 possible answers for this one, right? It would be the arteries. Some people might say the capillaries, right? But I think the artery is the better answer here because they said the organ itself. The organs are made up of cells. But the artery is the one that contains the oxygenated blood that takes it to the organs. And then the artery will split up into smaller capillaries. Which one carries blood? Oh, well, in this one here, part 5, carries blood from the organs. It means it takes the blood away from the organs and back to the heart. We know that is the vein. We saw that this morning when we did a brief review. Which one carries oxygen? Well, the answer for that one, or what carries the actual oxygen is the red blood cells. Don't get me wrong. The artery contains oxygenated blood. But I think in part 6, they're being more specific. Which part of the blood in the arteries carry the oxygen? And it's the red blood cells. Remember, the oxygen would attach itself to the red blood cells. So the red blood cells come like a taxi service that carries the oxygen around the body. Part B. I think I only saw a couple of people send answers for this. Name the type of blood vessel which has valves. Remember, the valves are the things inside that prevent what? The blood from flowing backwards. So the blood is not allowed to flow backwards. Right? A few people are sending answers. Is it the artery or is it the vein? I'll give you a hint there. It's one of the 2. And we said the answer for that one literally about 2 minutes ago. The answer would be the veins. The veins are the ones that have what? Valves. Arteries do not need valves. Right? Blood will not flow backwards normally in an artery. So there's no need for an artery to have valves to prevent backflow. Right, so these are little standard questions. In the exam, these are literally only worth 1 mark in the exam, right? And they're also very popular in the multiple choice part of the paper. Right, so like I said, you don't have to write down the entire question here today. You just concentrate on providing answers. So let's move on to the next question. Good luck with this one. Remember the story about the heart, right? When blood now leaves the heart, okay, it has no oxygen. It has to go to where first? It has to go to the lungs to fill up on oxygen, return to the heart with oxygenated blood, and then the heart will repump it out to the rest of the body. Right? But good luck with the question in any case. Part E. C. Where is C? All right. Yeah, different color. So it seems that the blood is leaving the heart here. Now, if the blood is leaving the heart and going towards the body organs, right? Do you all think that this will be an artery or a vein for C? They should have put some, unfortunately, they didn't put any arrows to show you the direction of flow, right? But we have to assume it going out of the right and going into the left. It has to be an artery, okay? Because blood leaves the heart through arteries. So C is an artery for sure, okay? D, after it goes to the organs, and of course, the body organs will use up the oxygen and then send the deoxygenated blood back to the heart. whenever a vessel is leading back blood to the heart, it's a vein, right? So that's the answer for part A. C is the artery and D is the vein. I'll give you some more time with B. Our answer B and C in 1 minute. C. In which direction does blood in A travel? All right. So it seems that the blood is coming out of the heart and heading towards the lungs. That means this blood that is coming out of the heart has no oxygen in it. So it's going to the lungs to fill up on oxygen. So it's heading towards the lungs, right? So they ask for the direction, right? So obviously this blood is headed towards the lungs, and that will be the pulmonary artery because the blood is leaving the heart. And the one that specifically goes from the heart, that leaves the heart and goes to the lungs, is called the pulmonary artery. Even though they did not ask you to name it, I just put it in there. C. Which of the 4 blood vessels contains the most oxygen? Well, the answer for that has to be B, because A went in to get to get oxygen from the lungs. So as soon as that blood comes out of the lungs, it's totally filled up with oxygen. That is what it went to the lungs in the first place for. So my answer for that will be B, and that's the pulmonary vein that's heading back to the heart. Okay, it's heading back to the heart. What happens to the amount of oxygen in the blood as it passes through the organs? Well, think about it. The organs need what? Oxygen. So when the blood that contains oxygen goes to the organs are going to use up the oxygen for respiration, because remember, all the organs in your body, every single organ is made up of what? Cells. And inside the cells have the mitochondria, which perform respiration, which need 2 things, glucose and oxygen. More importantly here in this question is the oxygen. So the body organs are going to use up the oxygen. So the oxygen is obviously going to become less in the blood because it's being used up, right? So the cells absorb the oxygen and hence it decreases, meaning that the oxygen in the blood decreases. E, what is the chamber of the heart label X, right? So the X, right? Well, this is going to be the underneath. So anything with the underneath is what? Is it a ventricle or an atrium? But it has to be a ventricle, right? And that's the left ventricle. How much people were able to get all of these questions correct? Like all. All right, so here's a little graph question, right? Give it a read. It shows the pulse rate of 2 people immediately after 4 types of activity. But you all know when you do like any type of activity, like an exercise or you run a race or something, your heart will beat what? Faster. And of course, if your heart beats faster, your pulse will go up because your pulse is basically every time your heart is beaten, right? So anyway, give it a read. Well, one of the things, in case you didn't know, the reason why your heart rate goes up when you're doing some sort of physical activity like a race or you're lifting weights in the gym or whatnot, right? It's because your cells need more oxygen and glucose. So your heart rate goes up. It starts to pump blood faster. So the oxygen and the glucose could reach your cells faster. Right, so hopefully that will, I'm not too sure if that will help in the question because I haven't read the whole question as yet, but I'm hoping that will help. All right, so these are the answers here for this one. Pretty simple stuff, right? I know we're coming to the end, close to the end of class, right? We have a few more minutes.